This week, public media faces a crucial vote in Congress to eliminate federal funding. I'm Wendy Turner, Executive Director of Michigan Public. Now is the moment to join hundreds of thousands of Americans who believe public media is a public good. Visit protectmypublicmedia.org. Your voice has power.
From Michigan Public, this is It's Just Politics. I'm Zoe Clark.
And I'm Rick Pluta.
Concerns are mounting in Lansing over whether a state budget will get done by July 1st.
That is a statutory deadline, and an important one as local schools, universities, community colleges, local governments across the state start their fiscal years on July 1st.
Trying to budget without knowing how many state dollars you're receiving is not ideal.
Nope.
And plenty of lawmakers in Lansing whose job it is to pass a budget, they know this.
It was in this context that we spoke with a bipartisan panel of lawmakers about the state budget and what is or is not happening right now at the state capitol.
Today, we are bringing you a part of that conversation as part of our Issues and Ale event last week. And Rick, I gotta say, these four lawmakers, 2 Democrats, 2 Republicans, they were quite open with how they are feeling.
We'll start by hearing from Democratic Senator Sam Singh, then Republican Senator John DeMoose.
They were also joined by Democratic Representative Mai Song and Republican Representative Mark Tisdall.
Let's just start with, how are things in Lansing right now? Honestly, Senator Singh, you have been around these parts for a long time. I'm going to start with you.
I'm in year 11 in the legislature. I guess not 11. It's a little bit less than that, but it is slow. Let me use that as the phrase. We have only passed 5 bills through both chambers signed by the governor, and we're in month 6. And so it is the slowest I've ever seen it. I'm hopeful that the logjam is going to break here in the month of June. There are budgets that need to be discussed. There's a number of bipartisan bills that the House have sent us. We've sent a number of bipartisan bills to the other chamber from the Senate. And now it's time for us to start working. And my hope is now that we're in the month of June that this is the right time for us. But it has been slow a little bit. We have a new, obviously, leadership in the House, and I think they're finding their footing, and we're going to see what happens over the next 3 weeks.
And we're going to talk all about what that means for budget negotiations and what it means that only 5 bills have been moved. If you heard what we call the promo for Issues and Ale, we were saying 4 bills, and it is now 5 just within the past 2 days. Governor Gretchen Whitmer signing the 5th bill. Senator.
So there's a breakthrough.
Senator DeMoose, your same question to you. Just, we talk about vibes these days after the vibe election of last year. What are the vibes right now in Lansing?
Yeah, I'm actually surprised that you were so gracious about this and I'll probably surprisingly be
Majority, minority.
Well, I know, but frankly, I find it just flat out discouraging what we're seeing right now. And, being honest, I've only been in this 5 years now. I came out of the business world. We ran our own company for 25 years. And coming into this, I guess I just thought I was naive that we fight it out during campaigns. And then we come in here, we'll roll up our sleeves and we work for the good of the state. And what I'm finding now, and not present company, present company actually excluded, is that it's politics all day long, all the time. And I am just disgusted by it. In fact, I'm literally at the point where I frankly don't care about the parties one bit anymore. I'll work with anybody who actually wants to get some stuff done. And we saw that, I'll just say that in no small part, Sam, they did something big last week, passing that 5th bill that I was working hard on. Because if I was them, with the way that the Senate leadership has been treated, frankly, by my own party, I wouldn't run a damn thing that we're doing. But this was an important bill for our district, our school district. And you were having, your caucus is stuck together, and I knew politically it was a challenge for you to do this, but I went and talked to you, and we all talked, a number of people talked to you, said our schools need this. And you guys said, no, you know what? We're going to do this because it's the right thing to do. And I was so impressed, and that's not happening enough these days. So.
Well, thank you. Tell us how you really feel, Senator. Representative, you are new to Lansing after winning a special election and then winning the seat for good in November. What is your take on what the Capitol is like right now?
So I'm used to uncertainty, and I think that's the key word that I hear time and time again, there is a lot of uncertainty. But I'd be remiss if I didn't share that there are actually 9 bills that we passed last term that could be presented to the governor, and that would get our acts up to 14. So these 9 bills have been held up by the Speaker of the House. One of them is my bill, 6058, which would help public employees like teachers, police officers, and firefighters. And so, we're working hard. We are a resilient people, but it is it's very uncertain times, very challenging times, and not going to sugarcoat that at all. But given my history and my new take in the legislature, I am in uncharted territory too, and so trying to navigate this new normal, but hearing a lot from constituents, business owners, and just everyone about the uncertainty, not just at the state level, but at the federal level as well too.
Representative Tisdale, we were talking before we came on stage. You spent many years in local government. Now coming to Lansing, when you're with local government, folks, your peeps, who you can turn to. Tell me how things are in Lansing right now compared to that feeling.
Well, in local government, there's not a lot of ideology, do these potholes need to be filled or don't they, so, and it was a nonpartisan position, but I would say to date, and to give credit where credit's due, when time, like with the minimum wage bill and the earned sick leave bill, when we were up against the clock, our side of the aisle and the House negotiated with Senator Singh, was a part of that negotiations on the Senate side, and we got it done, and I think we came out with a pretty good bill. I was first elected in 2020. It was divided government then. Republicans controlled the legislature, and Governor Whitmer was in the, was in the executive office. And I think, and John and I came in at the same time. Senator DeMoose and I came in at the same time, and I think we got spoiled because we knew that if you wanted to get anything passed, you had to have bipartisan support. Bill packages had to be 50-50 Republican, Democrat. There was give and take, and you worked across the aisle and made good friendships, and it felt like you were doing important things. And I'm not here to say we just pass stuff for the sake of passing it so we can keep account, but that really kind of went away in my second term, and maybe we're still kind of feeling our way a little bit in this divided government part. But, when the clock is starting to tick tock towards the end, that seems to be what the sense of urgency that we need to get these things done.
Well, let's talk a little bit about deadlines, sense of urgency. I've been around long enough, and I've actually been working in the state capitol building, I think longer than anyone who's up here on stage. And
Rick started covering Lansing in 1847. The horse and carriages were beautiful.
The boy governor was our governor at the time.
And people stepped in it back then too.
So you're someone we need to remove from the voter roll. Or according to what Republicans have been saying.
But I remember, the budget standoff where we actually went past the deadline of the state's fiscal year on October 1st. And there were discernible ramifications up in your part of the world, Senator, that there are a couple of drawbridges that had to be moved up and locked because the money wasn't there to pay for them, to keep people maintaining them, that state employees were told to go home. I mean, this is a real thing that has happened in Michigan history. Since then, one of the innovations that's been made is most school districts, local governments, universities, community colleges don't have a budget year that's aligned with the state's year that begins on October 1st. They begin on July 1st. And there is a state law that doesn't have any ramifications attached to it. But if you don't have a budget done and on the governor's desk by July 1st, the legislature is breaking the law. And I just want to start my right, your left, going around. Are we going to have a budget by July 1st,
Well,
Senator?
I think it's going to be very difficult. I've been in the legislature. I've passed 8 budgets or voted on 8 budgets, 6 under Governor Snyder and 2 under Governor Whitmer, and all of them were done by July 1st. What we're seeing here is you typically have your first budgets from each chamber out in the early part of May before the consensus revenue estimating conference that happened a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago now. And then you're right now in June, we should be negotiating with each other. That way, then you can do the last 2 weeks, get all the language written up, and then you get the bills passed. Unfortunately, our colleagues in the House have not passed a single budget over to us, and that has disallowed us from not having any conversations on the budget. So even if the budget comes out in 2 or 3 weeks, we won't have enough time to negotiate it. So I think it's going to be very hard for us to get it done. The Speaker has said publicly and during his press conferences that he doesn't believe that July 1st is a real deadline. He actually said in some interview one point that he didn't know if it was even the Constitution required him to actually have a budget done by October 1. So there's a lot of mixed signals coming from the Speaker, and I was hopeful that we would actually be looking at budgets from the chamber so we can at least begin negotiating, because we are pretty far apart at this point, and we know there's so much uncertainty at the federal level. There's so many cuts that are coming down over the next few weeks that we need to be at least figuring out our own budgets so then we can react to the federal cuts that are coming down to us. And I think, unfortunately, we're going to run out of time. But that didn't have to be the case because we've done it in the past. And I still think if there was enough focus and time put towards it, but hey, everybody was on the island last week. I know there's an important conference coming up where some of my colleagues are not going to be here in I think 2 weeks. And so I'm not feeling very optimistic that we're going to get the budget done by July 1st. And it's unfortunate.
Yeah, so same question, but also what are you hearing from your local governments, your mayors and local councils, your school superintendents,
Sure.
All of whom are going to have to deal with the fallout from this?
Well, I'll tell you what, I mean, you asked, the first part was, do we think we're going to have a budget? And I actually don't think we're going to have a budget. And I think it's absolutely irresponsible that we will not have a budget. I mean, imagine every other business on earth. Imagine your show here. We had to start at 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
Imagine all of a sudden we just decide, well, maybe we'll start at 7:30. And there's half an hour of dead air. I mean, you're not going to be on air next week. This is not how business is run or government.
I mean, I think the White House is trying to make sure we don't have a budget
Yeah.
either, but that's another conversation.
That's a different
for another
issue
time.
altogether. But I mean, the truth is, I became a Republican because I thought we were the party of responsible government, and we're the grown-ups in the rooms. And I'm not seeing it anymore right now. And I think we have a job to have it done. Well, I don't need a cheer. I'm already going to get excommunicated from my caucus tomorrow. So I just think we need to get it done. That's the rule of law. We have till July 1st.
Send your letters to Senator John DeMoose. P.O.
Representative Song, I mean, let's turn to you. You are in the House, in the minority in the House, watching what is happening with the budget. What are you hearing within your Democratic caucus about what's going on?
Seeing what's happening in real time is almost very surreal. Back in March, we had a shell bill dropped on our laps 30 minutes before we were supposed to vote, and this budget bill cut 90% of the state's budget and $5 billion from the school aid fund. And so since March, I've been sounding the alarm and just talking about the cuts that are coming down from the federal government, but also the state as well too. And I think it's very unfortunate because the real losers here are all of you, all the people of Michigan. And teachers are going to start seeing pink slips this summer. That's the reality. As a mom with 4 young children in our public schools, I can't help but think about our teachers. Which ones are going to get cut? What classrooms are going to get combined? What programs are going to get cut? And the schools have no idea because they won't know how much the state is going to send them in July. So that's why the July 1st deadline is so important so that schools can start to plan, because the school year starts in August and September. And so we don't have a lot of time. And the losers here are all of you. And elections have consequences. The reality is our colleagues elected a person to be the speaker who's making all of these decisions. And that's the reality of what we are dealing with here and the cards that we've been given that we're trying to play to the best of our ability. But it's really the people and the children that are going to be suffering. And as we go through these next few weeks, we have to think about all of the things that we are going to lose, like the free breakfast and lunch program that I hear from so many parents about how important it is for us to be able to feed our kids. And I don't even know if we'll be able to include that in the upcoming budget. We're certainly going to be fighting for that. And I'm grateful that we have a governor who champions early childhood education and the GSRP program and transportation and special needs and at-risk children. So we need to get a school aid budget done at the very least. Even if we don't do our state budget by September, I think that should be the compromise if we need to compromise, because we can't allow our schools to just be in the dark about what's happening in this Lansing bubble. And that saddens me, frankly, to know that teachers and our educators are going to be getting pink slips this summer.
Representative Tisdall, how dire is it?
Well, it is important that the schools particularly know as early as possible what kind of money they're going to have. I was 8 years in the city council in Rochester Hills, and we always wanted to know what our revenue sharing checks were going to be and road funds and those kinds of things that were coming in. So timing is an important issue. It's also important to get the budget right. And I know that the structure on this side, on the House side, is very different this time around. There are several appropriation subcommittees that I do know for a fact are working hard on this. I'm not in appropriations, but many of my friends are chairing these subcommittees. They're carrying around big 3-ring binders and they're going through line by line. You know, I would hope that we have a school budget out by July 1st. In the fail-safe or partial budget or backstop or emergency budget that was passed in March, we were talking about a $10,025 per student state foundation grant. The speaker is now talking about $12,000. Now, how can that be? Well, the $15 billion that was passed in March was foundation grant. There's another $5 or $6 billion in there in what are called categoricals. 2015, there were 30 categoricals. Today, we're at 150 to 200 categoricals, eating up $5-6 billion. And those dollars have to be spent on very specific services and items. And the school districts and the schools and the teachers have to document that those dollars are spent in that way in compliance with the law. So part of what we're looking at now is spinning out some of those categoricals, putting it in the foundation and letting the school districts make more of the decisions on what they need. So there are a lot of moving parts here. I would hope that by July 1st, we would at least have a school budget.
That was Republican Representative Mark Tisdall. He was joined by Democratic Representative Mai Song,
as well as Republican Senator John DeMoose and Democratic Senator Sam Singh.
And just this morning, House Republicans released their much-anticipated plans for an education budget. Still much negotiation to be done at the state capitol. And if you want to hear more of the open and frank conversation with the 4 lawmakers from our latest Issues in Ale event, we will post a link to the full video. You can watch and listen at the website michiganpublic.org/itsjustpolitics. And that is It's Just Politics. For today, I am Zoe Clark.
And I'm Rick Pluta.
Let's talk again next week.